Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Mindful Session. My name is Unisa Kamara, and my co-host name is...
I'm Dave Sleet.
Basically, what I do, I'm a motivational speaker. I own Kamara and Kamara workshops, so now we have extended it to Kamara Youths, where we're trying to help the youths into a positive mind frame. And David and I work together in many aspects because, please expand on it, David.
Okay, so I am a coach, a qualified coach, and I am managing director of ANA Psychological Accreditation membership. I work with therapeutic professionals, those that are in training, and those professionals on the outskirts of the therapeutic world that are psychologically alert, one of whom happens to be Unisa. So we work is a kind of double act sometimes.
We do. You know, I'm Batman, and this is Robin.
Don't buy that. Don't buy that. So what we've kind of worked towards is supporting people in our communities right across the world at developing their self-awareness. We know that the best professionals, the best community engagement happens when those individuals have the self-awareness to make sure that the people they're working with are not impacted by the professionals' own history, experience, and sometimes their own trauma.
So today, what I want us to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, it's what is going on in our communities. Now, David and I were talking earlier. We spoke about how, we tend to judge these youths. We're not giving them the chance to develop, and the phrase that David used was, the children are like water, but we expect them to be built as ice cubes. Now, we have to understand they go through the phases of life, which indeed will also expand on. Now, we have to also understand how the brain develops from the back to the front. Now, we welcome a lot of calls, we welcome emails, and if we don't answer your call while we're on the air, we will get to your, questions on our following sessions, which will be every Saturday at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Now, depending on where you are, please look at your local schedules.
Timelines.
Thank you, David. So, David, let's go.
Let's go.
Now, I'm quite intrigued.
Okay.
What intrigues me is that how we as society don't give these youths the opportunity to develop. We assume that they ought to know what we know.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Now, one thing is that we tend to acknowledge as adults, we know that the frontal lobe is where we do a lot of our rationalizations. Mm-hmm. We come to judge, we come to understand a lot. But being a youth, your brain is not developed yet to that point.
Yeah.
Let's go on to it.
Okay, so all of our cognitive processes happen in that frontal lobe.
Correct.
And it can take anything between 18 to 21 years of human development for that individual frontal lobe to be as
fully developed,
truly developed, as solid and fully firing as possible.
Okay.
Challenge with that is that we don't grow for those 21 years in a vacuum.
No.
We are impacted by the world around us. The experiences that we have an impact on that development. And the synapses formation is all impacted by that. And the understanding of nature versus nurture has been going around for years. So instead of us kind of trying to focus on, that conversation, because we could be here for years.
Of course.
What I think is kind of prudent to think about is, like you said, young people are like water. They're totally free. It's all of the skill sets, all of the experience is still taking shape. And the adult form is the ice cube. Now, we cannot ever get water to ice without going through a process.
Right.
And the brain has to go through a process. Most of us as adults understand there is a breakup of communication through verbal, non-verbal body language. And scientists, psychologists have come up with kind of what those
different
theories around what percentage of that is for each component.
Right.
With young people, those components are not the same.
No. See, one thing I've always explained to people is that we tend to think that these kids are supposed to know what to do, which indeed to me, it's ludicrous, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because just as we know, when we were growing up, we made so many mistakes. We needed the guidance of an adult.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that they say, oh, well, if they can go to school and comprehend the basics of mathematics or English or another language, why can't they rationalize? And I tend to tell a lot of people, this is called the process of life.
Yeah. It's called growing up. And we've almost forgotten that the growing up doesn't stop at 12. We are growing. Leonardo da Vinci, on his deathbed, is famously quoted as saying, "I'm still learning." Now, if Leonardo da Vinci can be self-aware enough that at the moment of his passing, he is still learning, then surely the rest of us have got some way to go in accepting that it's our self-awareness that has the impact. And if we are self-aware about the journey that we have been through to develop our own rationale, our own coping strategies, then those people that are younger than us still have to go through their own learning process.
Right. I was talking to one of my youths, and they said, well, when I put my hand on the stove to feel if it was hot, I moved it off right away. Well, technically, you moved your hands off after your brain recognized the fact that it's hot. Mm-hmm. Not because you say, oh, it's hot. It's the process of it. Mm-hmm. You understand? So my thing that I tend to, or I want to bring out to everyone, is the fact that if we don't go through the process of life, how are we to enhance ourselves?
I'll give you an example of how that works in toddlers and heat. We see a toddler approaching the fire.
Right.
And before the toddler is able to feel the heat, we're pulling them away. And we're saying, no, that's hot. Hot means nothing to a toddler.
Correct.
What we've said is don't feel something. We've put a block on an emotion and a response to that emotion. And once we do that, the curiosity of, well, what am I being blocked from? Why can't I go and feel that? Why can't I touch that? And humans like to be proved right. And toddlers are no different.
Of course.
They want to be proved right. So I can touch it. There's nothing wrong with me touching it because I don't know what hot is. So I'm going to go and touch it. And now it's become a constant battle between parent and child trying to prevent this child from hurting itself. Rather than allowing the child to get to the point of feel the heat and then going, now you need to come away. Because yes, now you've got a concept of what heat is. You don't need to go and touch it.
Right. See, let's talk about emotions as well.
Okay.
Because when we're talking about, the youth, the turtle church in the stove or the heat or whatever it is, one thing that I want us to focus also is the fact that when we do things, it can come back to affect that child or that individual down the line. Now, if I tell you, oh, David, you're stupid. Oh, David, you did this wrong. If I feel as though instead of us to criticize them when they do something, let's say, you know what you did is not right. Let's don't do that again. Acknowledge it and find a way to
find the alternative.
And find precisely.
Yeah. I was kind of taught probably, I don't know, 30 years ago, the story of two wolves.
Okay.
And Two Wolves is a Native American story. And, I know we've spoken previously about kind of Native American kind of contacts, everything else. But the idea of two wolves is that within the brain, we have a good wolf and a bad wolf. And the things that we feed those wolves will dictate which wolf will win. And it's a constant battle between these two wolves in our brain. And when we say negative things, we are feeding the bad wolf. The bigger that bad wolf gets in our brain, the less room there is and less nutrients there is for the good wolf. So you end up with a supersized wolf in the brain and a smaller positive wolf. And it strikes me that as society has got so used to hearing the negative, we've fed that bad wolf. And we haven't allowed the positive to become the normal. And as a result of that, when we hear positive and we're given compliments, we don't know what to do with it.
That is so. You see, and just to touch upon it again, one thing I want us to also focus on is the fact that I just want to put the emphasis on a lot of people feeling free to call. Now, by you calling in, you don't definitely have to give your name. You can just call in and ask us any questions that you have, regardless what it is. We'll be able to expand on it so you can get a bit more clarity on it. Now, also, one thing I also want to touch upon is the fact that when we don't acknowledge the good that they do,
Positive reinforcement.
the positive reinforcement, precisely. I work hard. I got good grades.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You see, instant gratification has an impact.
Precisely.
And you mentioned before about emotion. And
The emotion
when
it
you
creates.
exactly. And this is where we start getting past what we're taught the thinking process should be. So something happens and we are pre-programmed almost. The conditioning that we've all gone through is, what do you think about that situation? Okay. Now, we work within APA with a different approach. Most of what we do is a different approach. But part of that, and we'll expand on it in other programs in the future, is the VC model. And the first step in that is, instead of thinking about the thought, it's about thinking about the feeling. Something happens, how do we feel? Because we feel quicker than we think. But if we ignore the feeling, if we ignore the emotion, then we will run into more problems down the line, because we're ignoring a huge component part of what we are in ourselves.
That is so. See, I love how you just said that. Because I look at it as, before we speak sometimes, we should try to consider the emotion it's going to create to the individual we're speaking to.
Exactly.
Because when we say something, if I say something to you, just like I just told you, David, I got good grades, and you acknowledged it, that gave me a good feeling.
Yeah.
Well, it still gives me a good feeling.
You're still riding that high, and,
Now-
and that's the thing, is having the self-awareness, and it's something that you and I always are kind of promoting. That self-awareness allows not only for me to understand that by me just saying to you one word,
It created
congratulations,
emotion.
it creates that emotion, and that emotion will last beyond whatever negative comes in
Exactly.
as a result.
So what I was saying is that before we say words, when I say something to you, it goes through a thought process. And with that thought process, it creates an emotion. Now, are you all right?
Yeah, go for it.
Now, it creates a thought process. Now, with that thought process in mind, it can create either positive or negative. You understand? So a lot of time when I deal with my individuals, my youths, when you and I even talk, I have to consider my words, how I say them. A lot of time people say, well, Unisa, why are you talking to me like that? It's not the fact that I'm putting anyone down, or I like to use layman terms. It's the fact that I want them to comprehend what I'm saying and for them to get a positive feedback.
And being mindful of the impact that we have on somebody is a key indicator of self-awareness. And if we're not able to kind of do that in any great shape, then we ultimately trip ourselves up, but we also trip up the other person. And it's not deliberate. It's just simply that we've missed that step.
That is so. See, I also believe that we can make or break someone. You know the saying. Now, by the way we approach that individual, by our body language, and so forth. I also feel as though we're all psychologists in a way.
We all have a place.
We all have our own place, because the reason why I say it, we tend to judge others, and by the way we interact with each other, society is quick to judge. But my thing is that we're too intelligent to carry on the way we're carrying on. Why can't we be the role models that we're supposed to be?
I think in a lot of respects, it comes back to the self-awareness of the individual, to be able to take that step to be that role model, but to be the role model beyond the perception of a role model. I think the phrase role model has been used so much over the last 20 years, we've almost kind of forgotten the power of a good role model. And we almost we've given the responsibility of role models to the wrong people.
See, we are coming to an end. But before we even get there, David, let me just say I won't be here next week. David will be here for the next 2 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, I promise you the information that David has to deliver, he's my mini-me.
I'd like to be.
So ask him questions. Do not hesitate to question. Do not hesitate to send in your emails. Do not hesitate to call. But my thing is that I was asked, who's your superhero? What do you think I said, David?
Your superhero.
It's not David.
I'm going to say I'm not that vain.
No, but in actuality,
who's
I said me. I said me. Why did I say me? Because I cannot compete with no one else.
You can only compete with how you were yesterday.
Thank you. And if you ask me who's my superhero, I'll say ask me that in 5 years. Because by then, I tend to improve. But sometimes we tend to set long-term goals, but also they say it's good to set short-term goals. How do you?
I see it as I can only be as good as I was 5 minutes ago.
Yes.
Because every single interaction that I have has a contribution to my mindset. Every hello in the street has an impact. Every conversation beyond that has an impact. Every time I engage in conversation, I'm learning. I'm learning about body language. I'm learning about how that person responds to positive reinforcement. And when I'm coaching, I am always mindful that my experience, my understanding, my knowledge is not the other person's. And therefore, I cannot put my experience and my judgment, and therefore my perceptions of what they're looking at, onto those people. They have got their own experiences, their own capabilities, their own capacities, and their own coping strategies. All I can do is facilitate their increase in self-awareness as they move forward.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to a close, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. I want to thank David Sleet for his time, and just know that this gentleman and I, we love to fight. We go back and forth because our brains are like always ticking. But like he said, we have to acknowledge every day, every moment that we're here, because if you don't appreciate this minute, me being here with them, I appreciate this minute because I gained something and I have something to walk away with. So we have to appreciate every second of the day.
Yeah.
Would you like to close it?
Wherever you are, whatever you are facing, whatever your challenge is, know that you are not on your own, that there are amazing professionals available, especially at the moment. But for what each of us can do here, Unisa and myself, we will do everything that we can to maintain support and give you a space that's safe for you to express, ask questions, and gain some, hopefully, insightful and some fun along the way.
Absolutely. That's what life is all about, making the best of it.
And we spent most of today laughing together, getting ready for the show. So wherever you are, thank you very much. Hopefully we will see you and hear from you with questions, calls next week, every Saturday. Every Saturday at 4. So guys, take care. For now, bye.
I beat you up. See the finger going up?